What's up, Speedy's Garage gang? Welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. If you've been following along, the past several weeks, I have been sort of going through a restoration project on the old 4Runner Project Sport Runner out there. It's been a couple of weeks since I posted an update, and it's because I've been waiting for the interior to show up, and it's finally here, so I'm going to give you a look at it. And if you're not caught up, I'll leave a link to the playlist in the top of this video where you can see all the maintenance, all the fluids have been changed, timing belt, water pump, radiator hoses, coolant flush, thermostat, rear axle seals, rear brakes, just about everything is brand new maintenance-wise on the truck. And I wanted to move on to something more fun now. I even painted the chassis and replaced bolts in the chassis if I didn't like the way they looked. All brand new bolts from Toyota. So now something a little more fun. I've always wanted a little bit nicer interior. The truck did come with leather, which I think was a rare option for an SR5. That's the model that this 4Runner happens to be. It's a 2002 SR5, and it actually came with leather from the factory and sport seats. Now I don't know how that happened or why that happened, but that was sort of unusual, as most of the time the limited models were the ones that got the leather. And I didn't really like the limiteds because they have the fake or faux wood grain and all that, which really wasn't my style. And over time I sort of converted mine over to a sport model, which was made for a short period of time with the hood scoop, which I really liked. It came with silver trim instead of faux wood panel or wood grain trim, which I didn't like the silver either. So I really just wanted the pieces of the sport package that I really liked. Going to the leather in the 2002 4Runner is just It's a little bit thick. It's not supple and soft like you would expect a high quality leather to be. And you got to remember, it was 21 years ago, Japanese leather, right? So I found that through CatSkin, you could custom make your interior. You could pick the colors, the stitch colors, the material. You could do the bolsters one color and the center a different. You could even do perforations, and something I always wanted, I could add heated seats. You could technically add heated or cooled or heated and cooled seats, but honestly the Hellcat over here has heated and cooled seats, and the cooled part is just kind of meh. So for the price that it cost to add the cooled function, I did not go with that, but I did add the heated seats. I'm going to show you what I came up with as far as a design. Okay, so here, what I came up with. Here are the heating elements, and I did do the back and the bottom of the front seats. There should be two of those. And I have taken a look at the wiring, and I really like the way they did it. It's super simple. Everything is self-contained. You have one ground that'll go to a chassis bolt probably under the seats, and you have one ignition switched power wire. Everything else is contained in the heated seat wiring, and you can see that switch there. They even have a low and a high, and the paperwork that came with it said the LED will actually light up green on low and red on high. I'll show you more of that once it's all installed. Here is the design that I came up with, and I think that looks really nice. This is a biscuit color with black inserts, and this is all leather. And it's nice leather too. I mean, super soft and supple, I'll call it. Much nicer than what's in it from the factory. And this insert right here is perforated. So this part, and then on the bottom, there's the seat bottom. It's perforated up to about there where that line is, and this is all smooth leather. But again, that's what it came up with. Gentleman I got them from was able to do TRD logos. So I opted to do that in red. Remember, we did the steering wheel, had the red stripe in the center. It's one of the reasons I wanted it to all kind of line up and sort of keep that theme. And I actually found a guy on one of the Toyota forums. It was Affordable Auto Leather in Tucson, Arizona, and he did discounts for forum members. I reached out to him. Communication was pretty good. Had them to me in about 3 weeks. So super happy with that. Now, one caveat, for some reason they did forget to put the heated seat elements in the box. I contacted him. He worked it out and had them sent separately, so even took care of me there. So Affordable Auto Leather in Tucson, Arizona. I paid for these myself. They are not sponsored, but I had good customer service and a good experience. So if you're looking for something like this, you may want to give John over there a call. And the headrests are also leather for the front seats. So this is leather, but for the back seats, for some reason, these are just leatherette or vinyl or whatever you want to call it. Not a huge deal, but I thought these would also be leather. but keep in mind only the front ones are. And they also sent in a bag some extra material. And in this case, it was the accent color, which was black. And I think these are for the armrests, which I didn't even know this was included. And then maybe for the door cards. I probably won't use the black on the door cards. I think that might be getting too dark, but I probably will do the armrest blacks. I think that'll look good. Technically, you could install these yourself, but I'm not going to. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Technically, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, but this is one of those things that a lot of times takes a little finesse and some experience to really make it look good. You really don't need any super special tools. You'll need some hog rings and hog ring pliers. They're like little clips that hold the leather to some brackets in the seats, and not really that big of a deal. Those things are pretty cheap. The rest of it's really just kind of labor, and people that I've talked to that have done this kind of describe it as sort of like a wrestling match, especially if you haven't done it before. And they said basically plan for this 4Runner to take at least all weekend. And the seat foams in this truck, especially the driver's seat, bottom and back, as well as the bottom, at least the bottom of the passenger seat, are pretty worn. Like I can feel the foam is pretty worn out. Back seats are like brand new. No one's ever really ridden back there anyway, so not a big deal there, but the foams are going to need some work. And I found a local upholstery shop that has a really good reputation. I've seen some other work, looks really good, and they gave me a pretty decent price to install it all, and they are going to include any of the work that has to be done on the foam as part of the install. And if you try to go buy new foam cushions to replace these, they're not cheap, and by the time I factored that in plus my time, it really started to not make sense to do it myself. And finally, the ones I've seen where people did it themselves, and if you did it yourself, I'm not trying to insult you or anything, but they just didn't look as good as I would want. Most of the time they were a little bit loose, had some wrinkles in the leather. Maybe those would sort of work their way out over time, but there is a special tool that most upholsterers will use to make sure the material sort of shrinks around the foam and gets really tight, and it's a steam machine. And I don't think you can rent those. At least I couldn't find one. And that was another thing. I want these to look really good. I had them, custom designed. Sorry about that. Custom designed, and I wanted it to look really good, and I didn't want to take a chance on me messing it up. So I'm going to have a local professional upholsterer install them for me. The upholstery shop actually did a fantastic job on the wiring, better than I would have expected for an upholstery shop, to be honest. Everything's very professional. However, I wanted everything to be detachable or able to disconnect it, just like factory. And the relay power and trigger wires, or ground and trigger wires rather, they were not. So they just ran straight to either a ground lug and 12-volt switched power source. The other odd thing is these seats included a 15 amp relay in each seat. So the upholstery shop was like, we don't think they normally take 30 amps, but since they included 15 amp fuses in each seat, probably need to think about where to run that trigger wire that gets 30 amps. I was suspicious, so I actually hooked up a multimeter and turned the seat on high. It draws 5.2 amps, so nowhere near 15. I'm probably going to swap that fuse out for a 7.5. I've put in a weatherproof switch, as you can see, or I keep calling it a switch, connector. And this runs to ground. And what I'm going to do is, this is from the passenger side. I told the upholstery shop to just run the switches, which they did a good job on. There's one on the passenger side, one on the driver's side to operate the seat heaters. And I said, just leave everything coiled up under the seat and I'll run the power and grounds myself. I'm using a ground lug under the console right there, easy peasy. Ran both seats to that, and then I ran the passenger side 12-volt trigger wire there inside some loom under the console. I'm going to tie the two together here, and then a power wire will come from the fuse box in the engine bay. I'll show you that in a sec. That will plug into here, and that will complete the circuit. And the upholstery shop probably could have done this, but I don't want to say I didn't trust them, but I'm picky about wiring, like I said. So I kind of wanted to handle this myself. This fuse box in the engine bay has 4 tabs in the corners. There's one here, one over there, and 2 in the back. You kind of push those to the side, take the nut off, obviously disconnect the battery, and the whole fuse box will pull up so you can get access to the fuses. And these trucks came with an option, at least this 2002 did, for heated seats. So there's already a 20 amp fuse right here from the factory, and it is this light blue wire right there. So what I'm gonna do is come in the back side with my trigger wire so that everything looks factory, and just put a spade on that and slide it right up next to that light colored blue wire in the back of that 20 amp fuse, and then run the wire out the bottom of the fuse box and into the cab of the car. Factory finish. I've got the trigger wire we're going to run to the fuse box ready to go. It's got sheath on it, and there is the pin I'm going to use. It's just one out of a weather pack connector. I'll leave a link in the description in case you need some. There's what it looks like all finished up. You can see I slid that pin right up next to the light blue wire, and then I zip tied them together so that they're kind of married, and then ran the wire out the fuse box. This will set back down in here. Run the rest of it through that grommet in the corner with the factory wiring. And these trim screws were looking pretty cruddy, so it was a good time to replace those too. That's more like it. I even got the back. Those are new too. And since I'm working on the interior, I'm gonna go ahead and knock out another project, and that is new rear hatch struts. Mine have gotten to where in the wintertime they've gotten old and weak and they won't hold the hatch up and it hits me in the head. There are 2 different versions of these. These are the cold weather version, which means they'll be a little bit stronger. There is the part number. If you need some, put those on real quick as well. And it's just 4 12mm bolts, top and bottom. You may need a helper to hold the hatch up after you take the shock off. All right, those are replaced. Let's test it out. Oh yeah. Takes a lot more to close it, and it opens all by itself, brand new. And I do recommend you go with the Toyota shocks, whatever you want to call these things. A lot of the aftermarket ones don't seem to last very long. My originals lasted over 20 years, so I went back factory stock. And finally, I'm going to do something about these tatty floor mats. That's more like it. Well, here's the finished product. Super happy with how it came out. Got the perforations like I mentioned. They're heated. TRD logos are in here. I'm digging the colors. Even the back carries that same color theme through. And these are all leather. Everything but the headrests. For some reason, they no longer make the back headrest leather. They used to be, but these are vinyl. Be aware of that. But other than that, I had the switches mounted up on the armrest area close to the rest of the switches for the windows and door locks on the passenger and driver side. And when you have the ignition keyed on, which I do, down turns the LED green, and that is low. That's off. Up turns the LED red, which is high. It's perfect spot for the switch. And the heated seats are something I have always wanted in this vehicle. Our other vehicles have heated seats, and even sometimes in the summer I'll run the AC and I'll just turn the heated seat on because it just feels good on my back. It's like a heating pad. And I'll be honest, I've been sitting here with this one warming up for a few minutes. I've got it on high right now, and these feel a little bit better than even our factory heated seats in our other cars. Like, it's coming all the way up to like middle of my back and all the way down to the back of my leg. So I think you get a little bit more heated area, and it feels like it's going to be warmer even. So super happy with how everything turned out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as the website www.speedysgarage.net. And stay tuned because we're going to finish up this project with the exterior of the truck.